Siemens, which showed an extraordinary amount of transparency and sort of lends itself to granting GE a tremendous amount of credibility when they talk about these things.
David?
I think the answer to your question in Europe is that corporates are very nervous. Saw Ian on a podcast the other day saying that he felt that blogs were much more the natural territory of political organisations who weren't in power. It's easier to do it in opposition. And I think the same sort of culture happens here with corporates. Corporates, if you like, are political parties in power. Yeah. And I think there's another aspect of this which Richard touched on. We're all talking about blogging, but blogging is just one aspect of a broader thing that we think is happening in communications, which is this peer-to-peer thing. The whole democratization of communications, and I'd argue real democratization of society, has changed the way in which companies have to organize to relate to their publics. And one of the things that we've sort of come to is there's almost a direct and inverse relationship now between control and credibility. Right. And if you're in a corporate, and certainly I was brought up on the old school, you have sort of a series of messages, you deliver them to a series of individuals who are opinion formers, and you wait for that to cascade down. That's what we were all taught. That was how you did it. Gone, blown out the water. And it's really difficult for people in corporate organisations that are by their nature conservative to begin to reorient to that new reality. And I heard the description before that blogging is an opportunity to be responsive. Being responsive is very difficult, and it needs some sort of hardwire changing in corporations.
See, as an outside observer, I mean, I don't know your business model, and I'm not on your board, but the way I see it is...
You?
Noted.
Give me the microphone.
Oh.
I mean, I don't know your business model, and I'm not on your board of directors, but as an outside observer, it looks to me like you're taking a big risk, which you're hoping that your clients will thank you very heartily in about 5 years' time, and you're just hoping it's going to... I mean, and I don't think you're going to be wrong. I just think there's going to be a lot of cultural resistance because...
Yes. Is there any choice, though?
Exactly.
I'd like to comment on this. When Richard began the talk, he put up the chart of the institutions that people trust less. You trust politics less, you trust corporations less. What this is really a conversation about is, with the rise of the audience, the institutions that used to have power, how are they dealing with it? And if they have a relationship where they pay you, are they willing to do it and take it? So one observation I've seen from Technorati is about 2 years ago, we started talking to mainstream media. And just before that, they were like, who are you? You don't matter. You're the guys in the pajamas. You're silly. And then all of a sudden, people like the Washington Post, and we put this deal together, which is about a year old now, where on every Washington Post page, there's a box, who's blogging about this article. So they were the first to actually put on their editorial product the audience. And what they now report to us is about a third of all the new inbound refers come from the blogosphere. So they were worried, oh my God, we're giving voice to the audience, or we're sending people off the site. It actually helped. We did the same thing recently with the AP, and there was a big political thing there because in the AP, you don't get a byline because you're writing for the world's papers, but if you're a blogger, you show up on the AP and your name would be there. Well, that's backwards. And yet it's good for the AP. So we found the mainstream media was really interested in this. But until about this year, when we go talk to brands, they're like, oh, you're the blog people. Some version of, we really hope we don't have to deal with you, or we'd like to buy you defensively. And today's Edelman product is an interesting case in point. If you're a brand, you could use this for two ways. One is the CYA way. It's like, I hope something bad doesn't happen, and if it does, I would like to know first thing in the morning so I can go solve that problem. Now that's the less powerful way of dealing with it. The powerful way is, how do I really engage with the audience and be smart? And something that I saw right around January of this year is brands that last fall were either leery of advertising the blogosphere or doing various projects with us, suddenly switched and said, we have to engage with our audience. It's a world of social media. They saw the rise of MySpace, the rise of YouTube, and they realized the old one-way rules were going out rather quickly. Clue Train was right. You actually had to engage. Now, that becomes difficult because it's muscles we haven't used before, it's the third rail issue, all that stuff. So I think we're now at a moment where enlightened brands understand they have to do something different. And it's literally a case-by-case basis. It's, which brand manager gets it, which agency person gets it, which PR person understands their job is not to be the gatekeeper or the soloist talking to the press, but now they're really the orchestra conductor. They're a conductor of resources inside the company, all of whom have great things to say. So this is shifting, and there are people who get it and who don't, But if you stand back a few feet, it's amazing to see by kind of institution, by a state in society, from the media to brands to politics, the degree to which they're getting it, and ultimately enjoying the fact that they're having a real conversation and are more accountable.
You know, David had a wonderful comment about the control versus credibility. I would just put it a different way. I think there's this concept called the paradox of transparency, which actually, what you know, when you know it, tell it. In fact, show your product before it goes out on the market to people who are influential and passionate consumers. We did this with Microsoft on Xbox with gamers, and they gave us really very good feedback. Microsoft listened, actually responded, took the heat, and by the time the product came out, it had created enough momentum with then tech journalists and then ultimately consumer journalists. 90% of people knew about this product before advertising. So it's important.
Just lady there.
I just want to make a comment to what Nick said about the influence of political blogging and how really it doesn't make much difference. I would say there are a couple of things. I was told by a government minister that his opinion on ID cards was changed by reading blogs. I was also, you know, if you look at people like Guido Fawkes, who, by the way, has been very politically involved for 20, 25 years, 30 years. He's always been sort of very active in that. His stories are picked up by the mainstream media, and I think that what really advances issues and things like that are what the intellectuals are reading and what intellectuals are talking about and influencers. And those people are all reading blogs. So it's not about, it's about how, you know, sort of the people who read newspapers or who listen to the radio, how they hear from it is because it's picked up by the mainstream media. So I think the influence is not necessarily direct from bloggers to individual people, but bloggers picked up by mainstream media and then taken to people.
I think that may be true, but I mean, I'm still frankly amazed at how lazy most print journalists are. Because, you know, I mean, and I'll give you an example. A story this week, I think, I can't remember, from Mail Express about Fiona Bruce and the Cross. Now that was part of the BBC's Governor's Seminar on Impartiality, which was streamed live on the web for anybody to see a week and a half ago. It took a week and a half for that to surface, and I bet you it surfaced because a journalist got a phone call or had a drink with somebody and said, "Did you know about X?" And it's still, I mean, there is some impact, and this is one of the points about the presentation. Yes, the mainstream media are talking about blogs, but are they linking to blogs? Are they just talking about it and saying, "Oh, here's an interesting story"? Or are they taking the next step, which is to work out, actually, this is media, we need to change to get to grips with what's actually happening. And some people are, some people aren't. And I still think that the influence of political blogging is a bit overstated. I may be wrong.
Well, why in that case did the BBC spend a long session discussing whether you should link to political blogs or not? If they're that important, why would you waste your time even having the discussion?
Well, no, the discussion that we had about that was under what circumstances might we do it. It wasn't.
Well, why not do it under any circumstances?
Well, because it was a discussion about the editorial way that we might do it. It wasn't a question of do we or don't we link. It was a question of, you know, what's the best way of setting that up editorially so that it works for us.
I think you're missing a point in that, yes, opinion formers, journalists, politicians do read political blogs, but it's much wider than that. I mean, if you get 176,000 hits, unique visitors a month, which, I mean, I don't know how many actual people that is, but you're reaching a hell of a big audience then. I mean, I get emails sort of very regularly from people in their 20s saying, I don't look at the TV news anymore, I don't read national newspapers, I get all my political knowledge from the internet, from blogs like yours. Now that must be deeply worrying for a lot of politicians that sort of that people are doing that. But there are people who are actually inspired to get involved in politics because they see a different way of it being covered now. So it's not just sort of the opinion formers and this small Westminster Village group of people who are reading them. It's much, much wider than that.
I think you know, and I don't think we want to talk about political blogs all morning, but I think also it's in, you know, the slide up there that said that political participation in the U.S. was expanding as people read more blogs. I think that what I've seen in, you know, covering the U.S. blogosphere is that actually people who have complicated views that don't necessarily tidily fit in the dual party system now find a place to have some